Hi students, welcome to our World Literature Roundtable discussion over A Doll's House, and specifically feminism in A Doll's House. You guys know me, I'm Miss Bristow, and if everybody else would like to go around and introduce yourselves.
I'm Aaron Mellman.
Ayana Jones.
Fullilove. I'm Denise Milton Speck.
Sherry Tillman.
Mr. Randy Brooks.
Really?
And we are all your world literature teachers, except for Mr. Brooks, who mostly teaches American Lit, and Miss Tillman is our academic coach. But we are all here today to talk about A Doll's House. So I'm just going to dive right into our first roundtable question. If you guys want to just kind of wave at the camera when you want to answer so we don't end up talking all over each other. So our first question today is, A Doll's House is considered a work of feminist literature. Do you agree or disagree with this, and why? Anybody want to take that question?
Okay, so I'll take this question. I haven't read A Doll's House before, but just looking up some notes and looking through some quotes, it's very much talking about women's issues that are going on today, even through talking about the marriage, how when she started earning her money, that she started to feel more powerful, like she was a man, and even to that point of hiding money from her husband. I was like, ooh, scandalous.
I thought about this question earlier, and my first reaction was that it is not a work of feminist literature. But I didn't have a good reason why I thought that. I think maybe it is because Nora's ultimate journey, like her destination, is a selfish one. It is, I'm going to live for myself and learn about myself. I'm no longer going to live for my husband or my children. Mm-hmm. But I think that is maybe the core of feminism, is advocating on your own behalf as a woman. And so in that case, it is feminist literature. And I don't know if I'm just biased against, like, selfish isn't the right word, but like a personal goal as opposed to helping others is Nora's purpose. But my final conclusion is that it is a work of feminist literature, and it is about people advocating on their own behalf.
I do think there's some irony in that it's considered really one of the first works of feminist literature, and it's written by a man. I think that is something important to kind of keep in perspective when we talk about it, is yes, it's feminist, but it's still written from like the author has a male perspective. And so when we look at Nora's journey, I think sometimes she does come off as kind of selfish. Like, that's not necessarily a bad word for how she seems, but is it really selfish to you are before you start putting everyone else's needs ahead of yours? Because a lot of what we ask a mother and wife to do is to put everybody else ahead of her.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other comments on that one, or would you guys like to move on to question 2?
Question 2.
Okay. So at this point in the play, we have just finished reading Act 2. At this point in the play, we've seen Nora grow from this childish, very silly kind of character. She's become very anxious and fearful. She's in the middle of being blackmailed by Krogstad. She doesn't know how she's getting out of this situation. She's even to the point of sort of vaguely contemplating suicide. She doesn't really seem suicidal, but she's kind of looking for any way out of her situation. So talk to me about Nora's growth so far. Do you guys think Nora's growth seems realistic, that she would so quickly over the course of a couple days go from a silly, childish person to this anxious and fearful person? And just kind of talk to me about that change so far.
I'll go ahead. I think when I read it, that it seemed like two extremes. It was focusing more on like the female emotion and hysteria. And so that's why it goes from this childlike behavior that pleases her husband to what I would call like uber anxiety, which that didn't read as realistic to me. It just seemed like someone assigning emotions that he assumed a woman would feel at the time.
Go ahead, Valerie.
I think it's realistic when you're faced with a crisis. Sometimes you realize that you have to, I guess, stop playing around and get serious in order to prepare yourself to fix this situation, you know. So I think it's realistic to go from, I guess, childish like to an adult in a couple of days.
I do think it's worth looking at how she acts around different characters as well. She has this anxious and fearful attitude, specifically around Krogstad, who is, you know, the only person that kind of treats her like an adult, whereas around Torvald and Dr. Rank and even Christine, to an extent, she's still trying to keep up the appearance of being her old kind of silly, childish self.
I don't know. From the way she flips back with Torvald and Krogstad, the impression that I always got was that the childish thing was an act. That's who she was supposed to be to Torvald, so that's who she was. And it was the way that she got what she wanted. But that's not who she was. That was code switching for him and for everyone else. You know, that's how she got what she wanted. But with Krogstad, that didn't work. So she wasn't like that with him. But she was not childish. She was putting on an effect of childishness because that's the way the world allowed her, or that's what the world wanted her to be, or not.
Yeah, she has that line at the end of Act 2 where she talks about how she loves Torvald most of all kind of because she's supposed to, even though she doesn't really like spending time with them. So she kind of even says herself in the play that she knows she's supposed to love someone, but everything she does around them is like she puts on an act, she's putting on an effort, she has to try to be that way. None of it's really herself or who she is.
Which we all do, you know, with everyone. You know, nobody's your real authentic self with people, you know. We all have roles.
Speaking of Nora and Torvald's relationship, that kind of segues us into question 3. You guys are ready to move on to that one. So question 3 says, Nora and Torvald's relationship was normal for the time when the play was written. Do you think their dynamic is still quote unquote normal today? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? And then to kind of talk generally about the power dynamic in relationships. Obviously, Torvald is very controlling of Nora, which would have been normal at the time. Do you think that's still normal in 2020 and good thing or bad thing?
I don't think it's normal. It was normal at the time, but I don't think that will work today. We're not putting up with that stuff.
Exactly.
I think for the most part, it's not normal today, but there's still a small group of people who are traditional and would be okay with that, if that makes sense. Like, it's what they've seen in their home and they expect it. And then you just kind of emulate that in your relationship. But 95% of the population, or females, would say no.
Well, I definitely think that guys do it. An air of masculinity, like trying to play a role in their relationships. And I think that girls do it differently than Nora, but they definitely, I think everyone behaves in a certain way for the other person, like you're playing a role partially. You know, you're playing mother, you're playing wife, you're playing, I don't know. You know, you think about the term gold digger, and those people are playing a role to get something, just like Nora is playing a role to get something. And guys definitely behave in a way that's not natural in order to appear more attractive, to get what they want. It's all about getting what you want, I guess. That sounds super selfish.
When we talk specifically about their power dynamic and the way that Torvald is very controlling of Nora and whether or not that's normal, I kind of think it unfortunately is fairly normal, this dynamic they have going on. I know a lot of people who have to say, ask their husband for permission before they can buy something. Or you'll see sometimes when people I spend a lot of time on Facebook because I'm old, I guess. When people sell stuff on Facebook, they'll, hey, do you want me to put a little note in the package that says like, congratulations, you won this, so that your husband doesn't know that you're spending more money on this. And like Mellman is laughing at that, but like people really do that, and that's awful. Like the fact that you should have to hide purchasing, you know, a dress that you bought on Facebook, and you should have to like pretend like you won it so that your husband doesn't know that you're spending money. Like that kind of sneaking and stuff, just like that's not the fact that there's that kind of power dynamic just with money in play. What does it say about the power dynamic with anything else? Like, do you have to also ask permission before you go hang out with your friends? Do you have to never talk about your childhood friends the same way Nora could never talk about Christine? Like, we see that money one kind of play out publicly sometimes. And it makes me wonder if that power dynamic isn't all too normal in every other area.
Yeah, my wife and I do that. Like, she'll say to me, can we buy this?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, you know how much money we have. So if you think we can, then you can, you know, but I'm not in charge. You can't ask me for permission. You know, it's, you know,
Yeah.
you're going to be able to live here if you do that, you know.
Denise, can you speak to that one? I know you're
She looks eager.
You're the other married person here. Tell me about it.
I was going to say not so much about spending money. We're one of those couples that we have a joint account for bills, and we have our separate checking accounts to spend money whenever we want. But it is with the asking permission, because I find that our 7-year relationship, he'll be like, hey, I'm going to hang out with so-and-so. Is that okay? And I'm like, of course it's okay. But he asks every single time. So maybe there was one time in our 7 years that I was like, no. And that's just like hovered around us all of this time.
Well, there's a difference in saying like, did you have other plans? You know, do you
Mm-hmm.
watching, you know, do you mind doing bedtime by yourself tonight with the kids because I'm going to go out and do XYZ? That's different than saying like, never speak about your childhood friends, right?
Right.
But I think there's an unfortunate number of women stuck in relationships where that's the status quo.
Yeah, I think about my college friends and other married people I know, and everyone isn't as independent as they would like to be, whether it's through finances or just agency.
Okay, that one got kind of heavy, so let's move on to the to question 4 here. It's about Krogstad, our antagonist of the play. We mentioned earlier he's the only character that consistently treats Nora like she's an adult. We've talked about why that is, because of Nora putting on a front for him or not putting on a front for him. But how do you think that this drives the play forward? So let's talk a little more literary here. Krogstad's even of Nora as, you know, he's very harsh with her. He doesn't really kind of take any crap from Nora. Like he just puts it all out there and almost calls her bluff at several times during the play. How do you think this drives the plot of the play forward?
Well, we discussed this in our earlier video. I think we did. that Krogstad is the only one who Nora has something that he wants. So he has to treat her like someone with something valuable, like an adult. No one else wants anything from Nora. Well, Miss Lind wants a job. Maybe that doesn't hold up. I don't know. I kind of feel like you need to have authority and power in some area in order to have respect from people. You have to be respect worthy. And to most people, Nora is not respect worthy. She has nothing to offer. She has nothing to give, nothing to, no ability.
Do you think that Krogstad's treatment of Nora is respectful? I don't know that I would consider
No, not respectful, like an adult.
You have a text message.
That Barbie.
He treats
Y'all
her
hear,
like an
y'all hear
adult
that?
because
Yeah.
she has something that he wants. Whereas nobody else can Nora give anything. I don't know that holds up, but
Even the children don't really seem to respect Nora very much.
Mhm.
no, I just said not respect. It's that she has something. He doesn't treat her with respect. He treats her like an adult.
See, I just assumed he treated her like he treats everyone because he has something on her because she took out the bank loan for him, and just his underhandedness can't be tamed. And so does it matter that she's like flighty or whatever? Like, she owes him money. And so he talks to her the way I think he would talk to anyone with money.
Do you think, Denise, that you wrote the play intended for Krogstad to feel, for the audience to think Krogstad is this evil, bad, like loan shark, horrible person? Or do you think we're just it's more that we're just looking at it from Nora's perspective? Because if you read closely in the play, Krogstad does have kids. Like, he's trying to support his family as a single parent as well.
Yeah.
So do you think it was intentional on Ibsen's part that we're supposed to think of him as this evil loan shark guy, or what?
I think that's the setup, but I know that he's acting from a place of like trying to figure out what's going on he's like, not self-absorbed isn't the right word, but he's more concerned about himself and his family. But you know that he does have some ability to exact tenderness because of the way that he treats Miss Lind towards the end of the play. So I think while Ibsen does set it up to be like, oh, it's this cold, calculating person, you know, underneath, like there's something else going on there, whether it's the concern with finances because of his reputation, or, you know, that he wants to turn a leaf.
Is Krogstad even the antagonist of the play, or is Torvald the antagonist of the play?
Good question.
I would argue that you could call this a woman versus self sort of conflict, because ultimately Nora's self-growth, like her growth as a person, what drives the story.
Or woman versus society.
Yeah, that could be it as well. Okay, any other comments on Nora and Torvald? Because the last question here, question 5, really changes gears into talking about our one romantic subplot in this play. So last call for comments on Nora and Torvald, and then we'll go on to question 5. Everybody good? Question 5, all right. So in the middle of Act 2, Dr. Rank confesses that he has been in love with Nora for a long time, and he is telling her now because his consumption of the spine has become terminal and he is going to die soon. So I wanted to talk about this confession of love. I brought it up in our video for Friday, if this seemed maybe selfish of Rank to confess it right before he dies, to kind of put that burden on Nora right before he dies. So do you guys think this changes things for Nora to have Dr. Rank confess this to her? Does it put something in perspective for the audience? You guys think Nora reciprocates Dr. Rank's feelings? She was certainly flirting with him, showing off her flesh-colored stockings at the end of there. Yeah.
That's flirting.
Mr. Brooks is laughing.
Back then it was.
Flesh-colored stockings. She's like, you can only see the feet, and then she shows him the whole stocking.
Nice.
So yeah, let's talk about this confession of love. Does it change things for Nora? What does it put into perspective for the audience?
I don't know. What exactly is he in love with? This person whose whole public persona is doting on her husband, unless he has some hidden knowledge, what exactly is he in love with? A child, a little bird, a little squirrel? Like, that's what her public persona is, whose whole life is to, like, make her husband happy. What did you fall in love with exactly? Or do you just think she's really good looking or something? I mean, I don't know.
She is supposed to be beautiful.
Yeah.
She talks several times about being, she says, like, it's a good thing everything looks so good on me because I could only ever buy cheap clothing.
It's like, what are you in love with exactly? You don't even know her. There is no her.
Yeah. I didn't read it like he loved her. I read it like, you know, maybe it was a crush and that he was infatuated with how she looked and how dainty and frilly she was.
He says he would give his life for her, and that sort of feels like love to me. I mean, I don't just go walking around saying I would give my life for you to people that I just think are cute, right?
I read that like courtly love. Like, okay, like I've known you for 5 minutes, like Claudio and Hero, and I love you and I'll lay down my life for you. But I don't mean it. It's just like what we say at the time.
I have never thought of it that way, but that's a good point. Do you guys think this this sort of deathbed confession? I'm gonna throw this one to Valerie because I feel like we're not letting Valerie talk a lot here. So I'm gonna throw this one to Miss Fullilove. Sorry, I forgot the kids are listening to this. Throwing this one to Miss Fullilove. What do you think about this deathbed confession of love? Do you feel like this puts a burden on Nora? As soon as Dr. Rank dies, which is imminent, Nora is going to be the only one left knowing that he was in love with her and that she kind of played back into it with the way she was flirting with him. Do you think that was fair of him to put that onto Nora?
Fair? Probably not. I mean, what is she supposed to do with that information once he dies? She's the only one that knows it. Do I think it would change anything? Probably not.
Miss Jones, did you have any thoughts on that one? I feel like we've also kind of.
You're good. I'm sorry. I'm getting pinged over here by my administrators over here. So.
We all got a lot going on, right?
Yeah, and it's been hard. So I'm just kind of listening.
I feel like if it's about keeping up appearances and her doting on her husband, I think Miss Fullilove is right. Like, it's not going to change anything. It's like, okay, but she's not going to suddenly like switch gears and then profess her love for Dr. Rank in return. But then as we reach the end of the play, we all know it doesn't matter.
Well, does she even love Torvald? Like, does it matter if Dr. Rank loves her and if she has strong feelings for him back with the way that she appears to, like, quote unquote love Torvald, but not really? I don't know. She definitely flirts with Dr. Rank. Like, we see her Dr. Rank, and she talks to Dr. Rank. Like, that's another thing that I think is really important to note. That little exchange they had where Dr. Rank had heard of Christine before, but Torvald had never heard Christine's name before. So it's like she has conversations with Dr. Rank and she never ever talks to her husband. So maybe Dr. Rank, you know, over the years has fallen in love with something. Like, maybe Dr. Rank is one of the few people that actually know her.
It's possible.
Could be. I mean, she doesn't talk to her husband because he wouldn't listen anyway.
That's true.
So maybe she has built this relationship with Dr. Rank that makes her, you know, feel or validates her in some way. And she loves the attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, you guys, we are coming up on our 20-30, I forgot to start my timer, 20-30 minute mark on our video here. So I'd like to wrap it up so that we don't overwhelm the students with the longest roundtable ever. Anybody have any last comments on A Doll's House or on feminism or anything to say? Anything else to say?
Nope.
As
Thank
the
you so
second
much
reader-
for setting this up, Miss Bristow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
You are very welcome. I was thinking we could try and do this again next Friday, and maybe we're recording this on Friday, students. You're going to watch it on Monday. I was thinking maybe we could try and set this up again next Friday and maybe invite some kids to join us if they want to try and get the Zoom client working. So I don't know, but that's our goal for next week, is going to be to get some collaboration going, either student to student or student to teacher. So hopefully we can make that work. But okay, guys, I think that's it for today. Yeah. Thank you everybody for tuning in to our roundtable discussion, and we'll see you around. Bye.
Hey, Jen,
Bye.